Okay, in this video I'll be installing a roof vent. I was going to do more baffles this weekend, but it's so hot up here, I decided I would do the vent. You see it's at 40 Celsius, I just brought this up with me, so 110 Fahrenheit. I'll show it to you later after about 5 minutes. So you can see I had to cut my way into this portion of the roof. The previous owners deleted the vent, which I'm going to drill through, just relocate it to where it used to be. And the reason they may have done that is because they installed two new vents in the main roof, which technically are big enough for the entire attic, so they could handle 1,200 square feet. However, because this roof is almost completely separated from the main roof, nothing is venting out above what is actually my bedroom. So it is crazy hot up here. There's absolutely no movement out of the roof cavity. So like I said, I'm just putting a drill where it used to be, and I'm shoving a piece of electrical wire up through there so I could actually visualize it quickly when I get outside. Later I will redo all these baffles just to update them prior to blowing in some more insulation in here. But like I said, first step first, you can see in the time it took me to drill that hole, I'm already at 50 Celsius or about 120 Fahrenheit, and it's going to go up from there. In fact, it's going to bottom out on the thermometer there. So you can see I am using a rope. It is the steepest part of my roof. Generally my roof is not very steep. However, this one back section has a bit of a pitch to it. So I'm using a rope and a gree and some climbing stuff. For this hole, I actually cut it lower. I don't use the entire upper portion because it's actually a little close to the ridge lines. And I find that if I went up one shingle higher, I would be at a convergence of everything. So I do actually cut the hole a little bit lower, which I'll show a little bit later. But basically this thing is going to sit like that on the roof line, and that edge is going to go just under that set of shingles. If I went to the next shingle up, I'd be way into the convergence of all those roof lines. So I'm going to back it down a little bit, and like I said, I'm just going to have to cut a little bit of wood out. Not a big deal. So I do measure things off correctly, and I do actually have a lot of problems with this GoPro Hero 4 camera. It's not the one I usually use because I didn't want to use my good camera in the attic. So I do miss a couple shots, but that's okay. Nothing I can't explain away. So I do cut the little section out, and sure enough, it's a small piece of metal that the roofers put in to cover that hole up. So I cut the shingles back so it can fit this 60 cubic inch vent, and I can slide it under the shingles, and you can see that I've exposed that metal plate and that I'm not at the edges of it. So I am going to cut that metal plate out first. I'm going to use a Dremel tool and a cutting wheel to do that. I could remove the metal plate entirely, but what I found is it seems to go up pretty high, and then I would be really messing around with the shingles and the two roof lines and stuff like that. So I chose to cut it out with the angle grinder in the exact same shape that I cut the shingles to accommodate that vent. And as far as cutting the perimeter for the vent, I really just eyeballed it and cut it down. After cutting the piece of metal out for a little while, I'm going to take the utility knife again, just cut out the last piece of shingle there, and then I'll take the pry bar and remove the shingles. And again, just because it's so hot, and probably because the interior is so hot as well, up in that 130 Fahrenheit, that tar is really, really wet and sticky. So probably a good thing that I'm putting a vent in. And I'm just using the pry bar to pull out the extra little bits of shingle here. So in essence, I just cut out 2 shingles worth of shingle. And then I'll use the utility knife to cut through the tar paper and get down to the existing hole. And there it is. So like I said, the vent I got can accommodate 60 square inches of air movement is what it says. So it should be good for about a 200 square foot room, which is probably about what this is. So right now it's 9 inches wide. I'm not going to cut a circle like it recommends. So it's recommending a 10-inch circle. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to use a square. And as long as I get it over 60 inches, I'm going to aim for about 80. Because I've also got that roofing truss in the way, that's going to eliminate some of the air movement. So I will make the actual hole a little bit wider. because obviously, like I said, that truss is going to take up some of the space. So you can see down there, a little hard to see maybe, it is over 50 Celsius, so it's probably in the range of 130 Fahrenheit underneath my roof. So in that portion of the attic, the main portion of my attic, much cooler. There's plenty of tools you could use for making this hole a little bit bigger. I am using a battery operated jigsaw because most of my tools are actually corded, so it's always nice to have a battery operated tool up here. I am just eyeballing it, but when I'm done it is about 9 by 9, so approximately 81 cubic inches for the hole, and then obviously the like I said, the roof truss is going to take up some of that air movement, so less than 81 but more than 60 square inches of hole through the roof. And obviously you don't want to cut your roof trusses. So to remove that last little section, I'm just going to use a pry bar and get the chipboard off in that way. And one point to note, again, it's because I missed it on filming it. I do go for a Slurpee here pretty soon, and just having the hole open like this actually drops the temperature down to 110 Fahrenheit. So just opening that hole and leaving for an hour knocked about 20 Fahrenheit out of the crawl space there. So like I said, I did go for a Slurpee break here. And now I'm just taking the pry bar, sliding it under the shingles, just trying to find any nails that may interfere with sliding the roof vent through that area. In total, I only found 3, so not a ton of nails in here that were in the way. If I tried to take out that metal plate, I'd be pulling out about 8 or 9 nails, so it would have been a little bit more difficult. But obviously, if you're doing this, just be very careful. Don't rip your shingles, and take the nails out carefully so that you don't rip the shingles as well, because obviously that will extend the amount of work you have to do. So the one thing I did not show, because my camera did not film it, is actually sliding this thing in. So I'm going to slide it back and I'm going to put it in again. So you can see I do have a little bit of tar on there already. That's okay. The product I'm using to seal it with is from a company called Black Knight, and it's just a roof repair rubberized formula. So I did put the Black Knight roof repair on 3 edges of the underside of the vent, the top and the 2 sides, and none on the bottom. So if there is water that sneaks its way in, it'll be able to find its way out through the bottom, ideally, and hopefully not drain into my house. So anyway, that's it, pretty much slid in and in place. So now if water runs down, it'll hit either the shingles and run down on top of the vent, or it'll, if it does make it under the vent, there is a ridge line, and ideally it'll not make it past that ridge line. So for the bottom, I'm just banging in 3 nails, and then I'm going to take some of that Black Knight product and seal off those nail holes. And then I put in another 3 or 4 nails, pretty much from where I took them out, from around the shingles. So 1 on each side at the second shingle down, and then I will do the 1 more under the ridge lines as well. And then once those nails are in, I'm just going to take that Black Knight sealant and repair, put a little squirt on top of the nail, and really I'm just using it here because I've broken that tar seal that is naturally on the shingles, or it comes with the shingle. So now I'm using this stuff to stick everything back down the way it was. So get it under the one that I just nailed down, and then get it to this one, because I also had to lift this one up a little bit. And I did put a nail in that one as well, just to replace the nail I took out. So get some of this Black Knight in there and then stick everything back down. And once again on the other side, same deal. Put a nail in the general vicinity where I took the nail out. Get in there with that Black Knight. Goop it up. Make sure the nail's sealed up, and then put a little extra around the edges so that I could actually stick the shingle down and it won't blow off in the wind. Although most of these shingles are actually really tight up here because of the convergence of the roof lines. So I'm not really actually that concerned about anything blowing around or shifting. So even that roof vent with those 3 nails is probably more than sufficient. Definitely wear gloves because it's really hot up here and this Black Knight stuff is actually really runny today. So definitely made a mess of it and definitely wish I wore gloves. So don't follow my example. And then just in a couple other areas where I lifted up some of the shingles, I'm using that Black Knight, squirting it under and sort of forcing it into place. And really just ensuring that none of the shingles lift off. And if there's anything that looks sketchy, I'll just hit it up with some more of that Black Knight product as well. So one thing I did do a little bit after the fact is just widen the hole a little bit. So on the far side I am trimming, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch of the shingle back a little further just because it was pressed right up against the vent, and it looked like it could actually kick some water a little bit closer to the vent than I wanted it. So just cut that back a little bit and then popped a nail in, and again used the Black Knight to seal everything up and push everything back down in place so it sticks down. So there is the roof that I ventilated. And like I said, in my opinion, this roof is almost entirely separated from the other roof in the attic space. After letting it sit for about 2.5 hours, I just sort of sprinkled some water on it to see where the water would run, and I'm generally happy that it ran off and sort of split into the correct directions so that it didn't pool up on the vent. And that's what it looked like. It probably took me 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. I was kind of slow, took a Slurpee break. Overall, not too bad actually, but it is raining on the day that I'm doing the voiceover, so I'm going to get up in the attic this evening and see how everything held up. And if I posted it held up well. If my attic's leaking today, I will not post the video. So if you're watching, it should be good. Links to everything in the description, and that's what it looks like. And one thing to note, you may not want these because it sort of breaks up your roof line, makes things look uglier. I could really only see this from the road. I can't, if I'm in my backyard, I can't see this vent. If you're in the front yard, you can't see the vent because this ridge is in the way. But so overall, it doesn't really detract from the look of the roof line. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.